Before we begin this video, I'd like to mention today's sponsor, because we really need the money. Amino is a social media platform where you can join communities made for specific fandoms or interests. But since there are so many communities, let's stick to just one. Voice acting is a challenging yet amazing role you can do for fun or even as a career. If you have ever aspired to involve yourself in voiceover work, the Voice Acting Amino is a great start. VAA is a community for all aspiring voice actors, writers, editors, and more. The Amino is full of beginner and veteran VAs alike and welcomes anyone who is interested in voiceover work and the voice acting industry. On VAA, you can seek advice and tips, find resources on the voiceover industry, advertise projects, and even get cast in various series. You can make friends, chat with other users, and show off your voice. You may even land yourself your next big role. What? No? They didn't like it? Okay. You can download the Amino app on iOS and Android. Once downloaded, search up voice acting, and it'll pop up for you to join. Links are in the description. Stay until the end of the video for another special announcement. Now, let me tell you a story. My name is Teal, and I was born into the Cardan clan in the House of Neverwind. As a child, my mother would tell me stories of our ancestors, our great progenitors who first came to this land, their new world. At one time, it is said that they could stride across the entirety of the fairylands in mere moments. They could blink out of existence and appear miles from where they once stood. And there were none in the entirety of their cities that doubted their right to rule. The entire clan was united as the men and women bound together, harnessing their skills and refining their ability to best be protectors of the realm. Until the trouble began. The Fomorians overran their cities and trampled over its people until there was next to nothing left. And in a last-ditch effort, my ancestors did the impossible. They crossed over into the other planes of existence and took all the survivors with them. They created powerful rifts that led them to new worlds that they could never have dreamed of. And it was then they realized that the destruction that they faced there could happen anywhere. The entire multiverse was vulnerable unless one was strong enough to oppose them. They devoted themselves to protecting their new world and every other world they could find for all time, and their people hailed them as kings. It was with these stories that I was raised, and often my mind is on them still. Unfortunately, our family is not what it once was. The world is harsh, and the good in it are pushed against so hard, and so it was with our family. Our numbers now are so few, so thin. My father once told me that there were only 6 of us left, and most of us from the houses of cousins and near relations. Our name only had meaning to ourselves, but I was driven to change this, to retake our name and retake our claim as protectors of the new world my ancestors conquered. But the old world remained a constant and intrusive force in my thoughts. I had dreams of the Feywild, fantastical lands with canopies of foliage holding gracefully above serene forest floors. Beams of sunlight bursting through the gaps with an energy as piercing and resounding as my father's laugh. But then, there was something else. The visions would always end with the same thing. A small grove of aspens, tangled in hollyhock with whispers of my name, beckoning me toward it. But every time I approached, the images would blur and fade until there was nothing left. Once I finally left home, I scoured entire continents to find a whisper of hope that someone could help me train in the same magic my progenitors practiced. I knew it was only through learning their craft that I could find my answers, waiting for me in the Feywild. I met old masters who claimed that they had transversed the plains themselves. I investigated the rural rumors of people who had suddenly vanished, and over time, I began to find what I was looking for. Ancient magic, portals that could be opened if one could find the keys. I became exceptionally good at finding those keys. I spent a decade traveling the map, attuning myself with the plains, trusting the tomes I had read, and taking hundreds of pages of notes. Spending months, even years inside of other realms trying to understand what it was that made each one unique. As diligent as I had been, I was only ever able to harness a small amount of energy from the realms at any given moment, and I could never walk between them as my ancestors had in the stories. I had never felt further from becoming one with the planes. I welled with emotion. I lashed out in anger, throwing my years of notes into the fire. I listened to the flame engulf it, the roar of the fire crackling away at years of my work. I clenched my fist and shut my eyes. I held back tears of despair, the overwhelming thoughts of all the places I had visited, the unique feeling that each one gave me. I took all the keys from my backpack and began throwing them one by one off the cliffside by my camp. Each one clattered and cracked as it hit the ground below. Then there arose a sudden cacophony of sound as my body itself began to violently convulse. I heard a screeching sound, like metal against metal that bored into the center of my skull, rising and gaining in intensity until finally... Silence. I opened my eyes, and there I sat in a place that I can only describe as a foggy, desolate landscape, a strange reflection of the world I was once standing in. All around me were wisps of smoke and heavy mists that obscured objects. As I went to touch them, I noticed my hand slipped right through. It took hours to comprehend this ethereal world in which I was trapped in, and days to realize that it was my own body that had taken me there. I came back through to the material world covered in sweat, half-starved and dehydrated, but enlightened. I understood now that traversing the plains wasn't something that could be learned or taught. It had to be felt. The plains had accepted me as a friend to them, granting me the ability to traverse them at will. This was only a small piece of what was in store for me. There is still much more to be done. I returned to the place where days ago my campfire had burned through the extent of my notes and books, and what laid at the bottom was something I hadn't looked at in years. I saw a small etching of my family's former home that was laid in a book of fairy stories for children. I folded the remains of the page and placed it in my breast pocket. It's time for me to make my own stories. Hello, it's Teal again. You still watching? Did you enjoy the voiceover? Comment down below if you'd like to have more videos like this, as well as leave your suggestions. If you guys want more voice speed paints like these, CJ will need to have voice actors. So, if you want to be a part of videos like this is a great way to start. There will be a post on his profile on the Voice Acting Amino where you can link your voice acting demo reel to him, if you have one, or tag it with #PrizzaVASearch. Who knows? We might like your work, and you just might get yourself a new job. We look forward in seeing a wide range of actors we can work with. While you're at it, go and follow CJ there, and keep an eye out for those voice acting opportunities. Thanks for listening. Now go write your own stories. Then there arose a sudden cacophony of sound as my body itself began to so violently convulse. Fucking shut up!